America had 47 presidents, but not 47 different men. Some died in office, some were assassinated, and one came back twice. Let's start with the first. The first president of the United States was George Washington. He was a soldier, a farmer, and the national symbol of a new republic. His famous dentures were real, but they were not made of wood. As president, he refused to become a king and created the standard for every leader after him. In 1799, after riding in cold and wet weather, he became seriously ill and died from a severe throat infection. The second president of the United States was John Adams. He was intelligent, stubborn, and deeply devoted to his wife, Abigail, with whom he exchanged hundreds of letters. He became the first president to live in the White House. In one of history's strangest coincidences, he died on July 4, 1826, the same day as Thomas Jefferson, exactly 50 years after American independence. The third president of the United States was Thomas Jefferson. He was a writer, thinker, architect, and one of the most complicated figures in American history. He wrote powerful words about liberty while also owning enslaved people. As president, he doubled the size of the country through the Louisiana Purchase. He died on July 4, 1826, just hours before John Adams. The fourth president of the United States was James Madison. He was physically small and quiet, but his political influence was enormous. He is often called the father of the Constitution. During his presidency, British forces burned Washington in the War of 1812. Madison lived for many years after leaving office and died naturally in 1836. The fifth president of the United States was James Monroe. He was the last president from the founding generation. As a young man, he fought in the American Revolution and was wounded in battle. His name became tied to the Monroe Doctrine, warning Europe not to interfere in the Americas. He died on July 4, 1831, another early president to die on Independence Day. The sixth president of the United States was John Quincy Adams. He was the son of John Adams and one of the most educated presidents in American history. He kept a detailed diary for most of his life. His presidency was difficult, but after leaving office, he served in Congress and became a powerful voice against slavery. In 1848, he suffered a stroke in the Capitol and died 2 days later. The seventh president of the United States was Andrew Jackson. He was fiery, aggressive, and carried the image of a tough frontier fighter. He survived duels, battles, and even an assassination attempt. He changed American politics by presenting himself as the voice of the common man. In his later years, he suffered from chronic illness and died in 1845. The eighth president of the United States was Martin Van Buren. He was the first president born after American independence, making him the first president born as a U.S. citizen. He was a skilled political organizer, but his presidency was dominated by economic panic. He lived into the Civil War era and died in 1862 after illness. The ninth president of the United States was William Henry Harrison. He was a military hero and gave the longest inaugural address in American presidential history, but his presidency became the shortest. After only about 1 month in office, he became seriously ill and died in 1841, making him the first U.S. president to die while serving. The 10th President of the United States was John Tyler. He became president after Harrison's death and proved that a vice president could fully take over the office. His presidency angered many members of his own party. Tyler had one of the largest families of any president. He died in 1862 after suffering a stroke. The 11th President of the United States was James K. Polk. He promised to serve only 1 term, and he kept that promise. During his presidency, the United States expanded dramatically toward the Pacific. He worked with extreme intensity and left office exhausted. Just a few months later, in 1849, he died from cholera. The 12th President of the United States was Zachary Taylor. He was a career soldier and a hero of the Mexican-American War. He had little political experience before entering the White House. His presidency came during growing tension over slavery. In 1850, he became suddenly ill with a severe stomach disease and died while still in office. The 13th President of the United States was Millard Fillmore. He was born into poverty and rose through self-education and law. He became president after Zachary Taylor's death. Fillmore tried to keep the country together, but the slavery issue only became more dangerous. He died in 1874 after suffering a stroke. The 14th President of the United States was Franklin Pierce. Just before he became president, his young son died in a tragic train accident, a loss that deeply affected him and his wife. His presidency deepened the divide over slavery. After leaving office, his life became lonely and troubled. He died in 1869 from liver disease. The 15th President of the United States was James Buchanan. He remains the only U.S. president who never married. He entered office as the country moved closer to civil war. Instead of stopping the collapse, his presidency watched the nation break apart. He died in 1868 after years of declining health. The 16th President of the United States was Abraham Lincoln. He was born in a log cabin, largely self-educated, and became one of the most powerful speakers in American history. He led the country through the Civil War and fought to preserve the Union. In 1865, just after the war was nearly over, he was shot by John Wilkes Booth and died the next morning. The 17th President of the United States was Andrew Johnson. He grew up poor and worked as a tailor before entering politics. He became president after Lincoln's assassination during one of the most difficult moments in American history. His conflict with Congress led to his impeachment. Though he was not removed from office, he died in 1875 after a stroke. The 18th President of the United States was Ulysses S. Grant. He was the Union general who helped win the Civil War. As president, he tried to protect the rights of newly freed citizens, but his administration was damaged by scandals around him. Near the end of his life, while dying of throat cancer, he finished his memoirs to support his family. He died in 1885. The 19th President of the United States was Rutherford B. Hayes. He was wounded several times during the Civil War and entered the White House after one of the most disputed elections in U.S. history. His presidency marked the end of Reconstruction. After leaving office, he supported education and reform. He died in 1893 from heart-related illness. The 20th President of the United States was James A. Garfield. He rose from poverty and became a teacher, scholar, soldier, and politician. His presidency had barely begun when he was shot by an assassin in 1881. He survived for weeks, but poor medical treatment worsened his condition. He died from infection and complications from the wound. The 21st President of the United States was Chester A. Arthur. He was known for his polished style and love of fine clothing. Many expected little from him, but he surprised critics by supporting civil service reform after Garfield's assassination. He suffered from serious kidney disease during and after his presidency. He died in 1886. The 22nd President of the United States was Grover Cleveland. He was known for honesty, stubbornness, and a belief in limited government. He also became the only president to marry inside the White House. His first term ended in defeat, but his story was not over. Years later, he returned for a second, non-consecutive term. He died in 1908 after heart-related illness. The 23rd President of the United States was Benjamin Harrison. He was the grandson of William Henry Harrison, the 9th President. His presidency came during an age of industry, tariffs, and growing economic power. He was serious and formal, not especially warm in public. He died in 1901 after developing pneumonia. The 24th President of the United States was Grover Cleveland again. He became the first president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. His second presidency was much harder than the first, facing economic depression and labor unrest. Cleveland remained a symbol of old-fashioned political independence. He died in 1908, years after leaving public office. The 25th President of the United States was William McKinley. He was known for wearing a red carnation, which became one of his personal symbols. His presidency helped move America into a new age of overseas power after the Spanish-American War. In 1901, he was shot by an assassin in Buffalo, New York. He died days later from gangrene and infection. The 26th President of the United States was Theodore Roosevelt. He became president after McKinley's assassination and was the youngest person ever to become U.S. president. He loved boxing, hunting, reading, and intense physical activity. He brought energy, reform, and global ambition to the White House. In 1919, he died in his sleep after serious health problems. The 27th President of the United States was William Howard Taft. He never seemed to enjoy politics as much as law. After leaving the presidency, he became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. That made him the only person to lead both the executive branch and the Supreme Court. He died in 1930 after years of heart and health problems. The 28th President of the United States was Woodrow Wilson. Before politics, he was a professor and university president. He led America through World War I and dreamed of a new international order, but his final years in office were marked by a serious stroke that weakened him greatly. He died in 1924, never fully recovering from his health decline. The 29th President of the United States was Warren G. Harding. Before becoming president, he owned and ran a newspaper. He promised a return to normal life after World War I, but scandals around his administration later damaged his reputation. In 1923, while traveling in the West, he became ill and died suddenly, likely from a heart attack. The 30th President of the United States was Calvin Coolidge. He was famously quiet, earning the nickname Silent Cal. He became president after Harding's sudden death and came to represent the booming 1920s. Coolidge believed government should stay limited and restrained. In 1933, he died suddenly from a heart attack. The 31st President of the United States was Herbert Hoover. He was an orphan who became a successful engineer and humanitarian before entering politics. He entered office with great confidence, but the Great Depression defined his presidency. After leaving office, he lived for decades and remained active in public work. He died in 1964 at the age of 90. The 32nd President of the United States was Franklin D. Roosevelt. After polio, he lost much of the use of his legs but carefully managed his public image. He led America through the Great Depression and most of World War II. He was elected president 4 times, more than anyone else. In 1945, near the end of the war, he died from a cerebral hemorrhage. The 33rd President of the United States was Harry S. Truman. Before politics, he had worked as a farmer, soldier, and small businessman. He suddenly became president after Roosevelt's death and had to make some of the hardest decisions in modern history. His presidency began the atomic age and the Cold War. He died in 1972 after serious illness. The 34th President of the United States was Dwight D. Eisenhower. Before entering the White House, he was the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe during World War II. His military calm shaped his presidency. He guided America through the early Cold War and the building of the interstate highway system. He died in 1969 from heart failure. The 35th President of the United States was John F. Kennedy. He was young, charismatic, and became a symbol of television-age politics. Behind the image, he lived with serious health problems and chronic pain. His presidency was shaped by the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the space race. In 1963, he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The 36th President of the United States was Lyndon B. Johnson. Before politics, he had worked as a teacher, and that experience shaped his interest in poverty and education. He pushed major civil rights laws and social programs, but the Vietnam War deeply divided the country and damaged his presidency. In 1973, he died from a heart attack. The 37th President of the United States was Richard Nixon. He grew up in a strict Quaker family and was known for discipline and ambition. As president, he opened relations with China and changed Cold War diplomacy, but the Watergate scandal destroyed his presidency. In 1974, he became the only U.S. president to resign. He died in 1994 after a stroke. The 38th President of the United States was Gerald Ford. He was a college football player before entering politics. He became vice president after a resignation, then president after Nixon resigned. That made him the only person to become U.S. president without being elected president or vice president. He tried to restore trust after Watergate. He died in 2006 after years of health problems. The 39th President of the United States was Jimmy Carter. He was a peanut farmer, a former naval officer, and a man known for personal humility. His presidency faced inflation, energy problems, and the Iran hostage crisis. But after leaving office, he became one of the most respected former presidents through humanitarian work. He died at home in 2024 at the age of 100. The 40th President of the United States was Ronald Reagan. Before politics, he was a Hollywood actor and television personality. His communication skills helped reshape conservative politics in America. He survived an assassination attempt in 1981 and later became a defining figure of the late Cold War. In 2004, after years with Alzheimer's disease, he died from pneumonia. The 41st President of the United States was George H.W. Bush. During World War II, he was one of the youngest naval aviators in the U.S. Navy. His presidency came at the end of the Cold War and during the Gulf War. He valued diplomacy and international alliances. He died in 2018 at the age of 94. The 42nd President of the United States was Bill Clinton. He was known for his charisma, political skill, and even playing the saxophone in public. His presidency came during globalization, the rise of the internet, and a strong American economy. His time in office was also marked by scandal and impeachment. Bill Clinton is still living today. The 43rd President of the United States was George W. Bush. Before becoming president, he was governor of Texas and had also been involved in baseball ownership. His presidency changed forever after the September 11th attacks. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq defined much of his time in office. George W. Bush is still living today. The 44th President of the United States was Barack Obama. He worked as a community organizer before becoming a lawyer, senator, and national political figure. He became the first black president of the United States. His presidency came during the digital age, the financial crisis recovery, and major debates over healthcare. Barack Obama is still living today. The 45th President of the United States was Donald J. Trump. Before politics, he was a businessman, real estate developer, and television personality. He entered politics as an outsider and changed the style, tone, and media rhythm of modern American politics. His first term ended after one of the most divided periods in recent U.S. history. Donald Trump is still living today. The 46th President of the United States was Joe Biden. He spent decades in the Senate before becoming Vice President and later President. His life was marked by deep personal tragedies, including the loss of his first wife, daughter, and later his son, Beau. As President, he focused on recovery, alliances, and stability after a divided election period. Joe Biden is still living today. The 47th President of the United States is Donald J. Trump. His return to the White House made him the second president in U.S. history to serve non-consecutive terms after Grover Cleveland. His second presidency began in 2025. In a deeply polarized political era, his final legacy is still being written. Donald Trump is still living today. From a fragile republic to a global superpower, every president left a mark on America's story. Some built the nation, some divided it, some protected it, and some changed it forever. Which U.S. president do you think changed America the most? Write your answer in the comments.